ทดสอบเสียงทดสอบเสียงทดสอบเสียงทดทดสอบเสียงทดสอบเสียงสบายสอบเสียงผมไม่แน่ใจว่าจะได้ทดสอบเสียงไหมใช่ไม่รู้ว่าจะดังทดสอบเสียงทดสอบเสียงได้ทดสอบเสียงทดสอบเสียง
เรามีอะไรให้ฟังเข้ามาแล้วได้ผมจะให้พี่เน็ตฟังไหมbefore we start the class let's have attendance check นะครับ Okay attendance check for now โอเคครับlet's have attendance check now นะครับเช็ค already see the project นะครับ and the class for the theme for the class we use AWS service นะครับ such as Glue นะครับ Redshift S3 Athena นะครับ a lot of services that we use from AWS to create big data and data engineering pipeline นะครับ and today I have to say that we are quite lucky that we have นะครับ the speaker from AWS team นะครับ will present about นะครับ the latest service from AWS and also นะครับ the BI dashboard from AWS as well นะครับ again the project already announced นะครับ and if you have any question about your project about all the service that you need to use for it for your project นะครับ you can ask PNet and PP from AWS team นะครับ he's always our guest นะครับ I have to say that นะครับโอเคเนาะนะครับ At the moment I can check very quickly นะครับ 2 more minutes and then we gonna start very soon prepare your laptop นะครับ today is gonna be lab for the whole class นะครับ and to be honest นะครับ after midterm exam นะครับ please always bring your laptop นะครับ most of the case is gonna be lab นะครับ
Are you Steph?
Yeah. Yes.
I think you invited me on my private email for an account.
Sure.
I didn't find the email.
Yep. Yes. Okay. Let me share it. Thank you. This one, right?
Didn't see it again.
Let me check.
The track file with these.
I will try add you again, so
Yes.
it may have version.
Do you know if we need something previous today?
No,
Or
no,
is it like-
this is a separate
Separate,
for AWS.
Hmm.
Actually, I already invited you. There's a two roles
Yeah,
here.
but I'm searching.
Yeah.
For, so the
Let's-
mail should be from who?
It should be from the. It should say that it from the AWS
Okay.
Academy instructor. Let me check for you. I also got the mail from because I invited myself.
Yes.
Let me check. I think should be some AWS
I need to check because and it should be on this email like give me 16
Yeah.
euros. Okay.
If
great.
let you check again if it's
Yeah, that's correct. It's correct. Okay, let me check.
Yeah.
ใช้จากเครื่องนี้ก็ได้เป็นเครื่องคอมพิวเตอร์ก็ได้หมดเลยนะครับก็จะเป็นการแชร์เข้าสู่แล้วก็แชร์ครับ
ก็เครื่องเดี๋ยวใช้เครื่องนี้
Perfect. ครับ
เล่นปิดไมค์แล้วเครื่องนี้มันแบบเขียนแล้วก็ปิดลำโพงอย่างนั้นเลยเนาะeveryone ครับ okay today we honor นะครับ to have พี่เน็ตนะครับ and พี่อู from AWS team นะครับ student โอเคเนาะนะครับ we start now นะครับ so everyone please welcome พี่เน็ต to our class ครับขอบคุณครับคุณเน็ต
So first off, thank you for having me again this year. So actually, this is my third year here already to present AWS. And so like as a of introduction, my name is Nate. I'm data and AI solution lead for Microsoft Service Thailand, and another people from AWS gonna help me today is Ajahn Wu. We gonna call each other Ajahn quite often. So he's like head of tech here in Thailand as well. So if you have anything else, you can talk with him. So in generally, we gonna agenda for today. So I'm quickly gonna probably talk about introduction, about the overall trends, about the data and AI, and probably more on AI service. Then we're gonna dive deep a little deeper within data engineering space. So we're gonna talk a bit on Apache Iceberg as well, and then the data warehouse, the lakehouse, and then the data mesh infrastructure. So first of all, I believe that Ajahn had taught like Redshift and Google already, but have you built like data lake or data lakehouse within your project already? No, okay. Okay,ครับ But you heard of data lake? Data lake house. Or this is data mesh. No data mesh. And have anyone heard of Apache Iceberg? Before. Okay. Yes. Okay. So what mainly is the file extension or infrastructure that the data that have you worked with? Only CSV file or just database normally? Okay. Okay. And what about Arvo? That's okay. So just to quickly, because we mainly have heard of, I believe every one of you have used like generative AI already. Anyone use like Claude Cowork? Okay,ครับ. What about open source? Have anyone run open source on their home infrastructure? Not yet. Though. Please try run at home. It will make your life easier. I have not checked email for the past 1 month already. It automatically read every email and then every morning it's gonna produce the podcast to me. And I listen while I'm driving here actually. If there is any task or any interview I need to respond, it's gonna flag it for me in my calendar automatically. So that's what we seen in the trend of agentic AI system already. So probably when you in the first year or in high school, you probably heard of ChatGPT already, and you probably use it. But now it become more agentic AI, and every organization start to adopting it. Actually, every resume that you're gonna send out gonna be screened by agentic AI, and it's gonna flag you whether it's gonna go into the actual HR or not. So you need to learn how to hack the system, how agentic AI thinks, so that you can bypass it when you submit the resume in the future. So that's kind of the tips that I'm gonna give you. So of course we have seen that the human and AI have been collaborating. We use Cobalt or any kind of agentic AI to help and to reduce the repetitive tasks for us. And of course, the affiliate innovation, we have the tools called Kilo, and we're gonna have a little bit talk on that to demo and to demonstrate it in the next talk, the next session. And of course, with open core, we now see open source community, the one that never interested in can now jump in and to use like open source infrastructure to automate their work and help with everything they do. But of course, when we think about how we're gonna develop something using the AI, but of course the data is the foundation of it. So as you can see that the data is the fundamental and the first order, whether we're gonna have the data source or kind of CSV file or POS point of sales data. Think about when we go to any store, 7-Eleven and everything, those kind of scan or the receipt is the data before they're pushing out, right? So of course, when we think about this, we should think about the data products and the AI product itself. So the data source, when we think about the data products, we're gonna focus on like historical data or the real-time customer data, as well as property, the third party that the company purchase it or collaborate with another company. So for example, if you use like Shopee or Lazada, you can exchange the points or get the coupon from other provider as well. So that kind of third party collaboration within the organization. And if you think about the AI product for the data source itself, of course, this is kind of like customer knowledge base, so can be autonomous data integration. And when we talk furthermore about the modern data community or the modern data platform, of course we think about probably the data lake and the data warehouse. But actually, if we zoom out, we will see that there's the producer of the data and then the consumer of the data. Right? So the producer data is like when we use Instagram or use TikTok, right? We actually produce the data to them. When we survive, it means our preference are being gathered by the platform itself. And then the platform consume this data to build the personalized engine so that they are consuming the data, then they produce the recommendation engine to us to consume. So this kind of interaction between the user and the platform become the producer and the consumer. And then in the middle, of course, there will be technology, where they're gonna be the data lake itself, the data warehouse, and the other lakehouse. So of course, when we talk about the AI portfolio, actually, I believe you being started or using a bit of SageMaker. Of course, for us, that kind of infrastructure layer. So because we are using that for the model building or the data cleaning and everything on that, so we have kind of the governance layer on that, which of course use GPU, CPU, or our own chips that we produce, which is Trainium and Inferential. And then if we're gonna build the AI or agentic AI, right? So we have the middle layer that mainly gonna be Amazon Bedrock. So this gives you the choice of foundation model, whether you're gonna be Claude or Llama or OpenAI, that you can use it, and then you can build the AI foundation from that. And then on the application and agentic layer, so we have Kilo, QuickSight, right? So I believe your final project gonna be visualization will be QuickSight. QuickSight gonna be the feature within the QuickSight now. QuickSight is like we can talk with the data by ourselves on that. So this is a little bit of the demo on the QuickSight itself that we can set up the knowledge base or the space that we can upload CSV file or connect to internal and external database or even Google Drive or SharePoint that have the data on that. And then I'm gonna quickly on that. So this is like we can also connect to the web as well. So we can build the chatbot to any data source that we can connect that to without writing any code on that. So this is kind of built for organization or even for the student itself. So let's assume that the teacher or professor feel like they're gonna build like virtual assistant for that course. They can upload the course material onto this and then connect it to that and then publish this to students so that students can encode this knowledge anytime and anywhere they want to. So this is an example on that. Also, with this feature, it come with the deep research, right? So I believe that probably some of you are gonna use Gemini or Perplexity to do deep research or on any topic that you probably want to know. Actually, this also have that feature as well. So if you want to do research on anything on that, you can just give you the prompt and then give the website that you want to do the research on, as well as probably the CSV file or the PowerPoint or the Word document to it. And it can do the deep research for you as well for this. And it will automate generate like the graph and the plot as well without any coding for you with reference site that you can refer for further research on the topic as well. So this skip this slide. So of course, when we look at overall the data storage and management, right? Of course, the bottom layer gonna be the data store part, whether it's gonna be you're gonna use Amazon S3 or you use Amazon RDS relation database, or you can have any website or log file or any data that probably sit within your laptop or other cloud provider. And you want to do kind of consolidating the data to the data lake and then process into probably the data warehouse or the data mesh for this for other business unit to use or for other company to consume it as well. So of course, when we do data lake and data warehouse, we remove the data silo. So instead of having one data sit within your laptop or within your server, you have the centralized data lake or that data warehouse for that matter. Anyone that have the privilege can access to it. And of course, with the cloud infrastructure, this can scale at large, right? So as AWS mentioned that Amazon S3 has like sort of unlimited storage. And we have seen that we have handled national data already, store nearly every Thai citizen. We have worked with Thai government, and like Japan, South Korea, or even India, that we store all the citizen data, and they scale more than petabyte within one day. That we have seen the pattern of that. And of course, we can also reduce the development overhead with AWS Glue and other service for that because it can automatically auto scale on that. So it can handle the data better. Probably at first it's gonna come like kilobyte or gigabyte, but then it scaled to terabyte or petabyte of consume of the data itself. And of course, we have seen the pattern. Initially, if we talk about the data store, if we look back at the history, the first word gonna be the data mart itself. So the data mart is more specifically for business, right? So every, let's say, department, just assuming, right? So this ICE like gonna produce the data by itself, so it's gonna store within their own data mart. But then the accounting department, the other department like civil engineer gonna have their own data mart with their own data source and then with their own data, and they can centralize it to, let's say, the centralized IT of Chulalongkorn, having the data lake on that. So with the data lake itself, mainly it will have only storage layer. It doesn't have any compute layer. So it's decoupling between the storage part and then the compute part of that. So with this, it's gonna be reducing the cost because the cost of storage gonna be very cheap, and then the compute part, we don't run the compute every second, right? Probably we're gonna run it every 15 minutes, every hour or every day, so that we separate from each other. And then one of the features of data lake is that it immutable. So just a quick question, do you understand between mutable and immutable? I see some nods. Okay. So immutable, just think about that the data that we don't want to change, right? So it's gonna keep it as is. And then if we have any update, let's say the Word document, it's gonna generate new version instead of override the existing one. So the old copy gonna be like version 1, the new one gonna be like version 2, or depends on our setting on this one. So the good things about that is that it can time travel. If we want to restore the old version, then we can go back to the version 1, for example, on this one. And the data lake mostly, of course, they are built based on open file format like Apache Bargate, for example. That can be like the open source format that developers around the world that help file tuning it. Right? And then, of course, it support every data type, whether gonna be structured, semi-structured, and then unstructured. We can have the video, audio for that matters as well. And on your right-hand side is gonna be the data warehouse, which of course you probably use it a lot already. It's gonna be more on for the data analytics part, and then of course when we mention about the data analytics, that means we consume the data. So it's gonna be the lead optimized on that. So you probably have a lot of node of data warehouse that user gonna come in and read, and then you can have only one node to write the data or to the data warehouse itself. So of course, once we see this kind of benefit of both work, whether it's gonna be data warehouse and data lake, there should be like one platform like to governance on this. Otherwise, you're gonna have to maintain two separate platform on that, and you have to have different governance platform to take care both data warehouse and data lake. So of course, we have seen this community take that into consideration, and they have built like kind of transactional data lake. On top of that, of course, they use the benefit of the data lake that they separate between the storage layer or compute layer. And then they use the open file format, whether it's going to be Parquet, Arvo, and any kind of open file format on that. And they take the data security part from the data warehouse, and then the query part that you probably like C4 language, right? If you use data lake, you probably need to like the Python or actual programming language to access that. But right now we can write SQL which run on data warehouse to query the data on the data lake itself on that. So it's easier for the end user to get the data. And then it also having the data quality and consistency for the data warehouse to enforce to the transactional data lake as well.
Student, I believe that the topic is very interesting. So maybe next week I will set up a little quiz on the content today. So that may make you have some motivation. With a little quiz, little just a quiz for the content. They are.
So the missing.
Just to give some motivation.
So as we talk on the open table format, right? I mentioned about the Parquet. Actually, there's other type of open table format as well. Of course, there's Hoodie, and then Iceberg, and then the Delta Lake, right? Have anyone heard of these three open table format before? Okay. So it's kind of pretty old and pretty new concept actually. It already exists for like the past nearly 10 years already, but that not much popular. It start to popular from transactional data lake, which just kind of bring it up by the database company. Database actually use a lot of data lake, and it's actually owned by database before they kind of open it out to other cloud provider. So if we talk about open table format benefit, right, it's gonna be kind of ACID compliant, and of course scalable metadata handling, and then they can enforce schema on top of the data itself, and then it has the time travel support. So in case you made adjustment to the data, so you want to make change or accidentally make change and you want to go back in time, whether it's gonna be like 10 seconds ago or 1 minute or the past day or yesterday, it can go back in time without using any backup. And of course, which one we want to choose, right? And we talk about the Delta Lake, of course, because if you're not sure if you heard of the Databricks platform before. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, including Ajahn. So the Databricks is like machine learning platform. If you have used Google Colab or SageMaker, actually Databricks is kind of direct competitor with SageMaker on that, and they involve itself from the machine learning platform to become more on the data platform itself. So they build the data lake below as the data layer for the AI for consumption. So of course, it is good out of the box for the database. In case if you use database when you graduate, then you're gonna hear a lot of data lake and that. but of course, because this owned by Databit, there gonna be some limitation that it's gonna be lack of transparency because it's owned by Databit itself, and then there's gonna be limited native support from all the cloud provider, whether it's gonna be AWS, GCP, Azure, or Huawei. It's gonna be lack of support on that. And if you look at Woody and Iceberg, this is more from the open source and open community. But of course, for Woody, it's going to be more on the low latency one, especially if you deal with streaming data that pushing out every, let's say, microsecond or every second or every minute. It's gonna utilize Hoodie the most because it's gonna be flexible on the mutable data. It can change easily, like insert and update, right? So it call upsert on that, and then you can delete, and then of course you can do a lot with that. And then we have seen the Iceberg, which is kind of similar to Hoodie, but they have better on the partitioning that they can partition the large data set more effectively, and then it's suitable more on the heavy workload and scale. So when we talk about heavy workload, right, we have of course seen that nearly large organization handle it, whether it's gonna be like Netflix, Starbucks, within Amazon as well, and then like Tencent, Apple, Adobe, right? If you use iPhone, then every data that you're using it actually got partitioned and then stored by Apple, right? So they use Iceberg to store this kind of data within their ecosystem, right? So, and of course, because we have seen this, so we kind of going all in with Apache Iceberg because we have seen that from every customer as well. And all the customer list here is actually AWS customer, right? Whether it's gonna be Tencent, Netflix, Apple, and Adobe that actually is our customer within the US, and then their feedback. And then of course we build on top of this open source Iceberg on top of that to more of customize to the customer feedback as well. So I'm gonna touch a bit on the Apache Iceberg on that. So of course, it is like high performance and suitable for huge analytic table. So when we talk about like more than petabyte scale, right? And then of course you can use SQL programming to curate the data from this kind of open table format, which of course it can run on every engine behind the scene, whether it's gonna be like Spark, Chino, Flink, or even Hive or Impala if you involve with high of big data like Hadoop development. But of course Hadoop is kind of dying at the moment, but Apache Iceberg is still there. Apache Hive is still there for the big data, and then Spark is still there, of course. So the benefit itself, the correctness, right? So it enforces the ACID transaction, and then the speed on the query. So I believe you understand big O1, right? Okay. So instead of normally it's gonna be like big O(n) or big O(n) divided 2, which kind of slow within if the data growing over time. But whether it's small data or big data, it still maintain the O1. So the query planning and then the execution itself is gonna be still fast, but again, the performance for the speed will be based on your partition of the data as well. So if you have the right way of partition, then it's gonna be maintain the speed of that. And then it also use expressive filter. I'm gonna talk a bit on that, and then it has in-place table evolution. So of course, and then time travel and rollback and in-place table evolution. I'm gonna touch more on that in the next couple of slides. So this is the iceberg table anatomy. So of course, on your right hand side is gonna be kind of our AWS service that gonna handle all the stuff for you. But when you build first, you're gonna of course have the iceberg catalog, right? You probably have built table catalog using Google already. Of course, it also supports the iceberg catalog as well. The catalog is just, in the normal term, it's just the metadata pointer. And then we're gonna have the metadata file stored within Amazon S3. So of course, when we first consume the data, it's gonna create the metadata version 1. And then the catalog gonna point into that metadata version 1. And if we have new data, new table, new data source, for example, then we probably have version 2, version 3, and then once we update the catalog gonna point it into the version in S3. And of course, the metadata gonna point into the manifest file. So manifest file is gonna kind of be the, let's say, the master table that say that, let's say, table name like customer, it's gonna distribute the data of customer table into multiple file, right? Whether it's gonna be Parquet or Arvo. Of course, from the database perspective, they need to know which data file it needs to query. So this manifest file is actually like the map to which the data file that need to be queried, right? So it's gonna separate into like the metadata.json and then the arrow, which is the manifest file itself, and then the data file which can store as a upload format or package that you have been using. And of course, this is just the clarify that I'm just talk about. All these gonna be sent to you, so you can read it for the quiz later time. And the feature itself, expressive silicon. Have anyone heard of expressive silicon before? Okay. Actually, you probably use it without knowing it. So if you like the normal silicon, right? Assuming that you're gonna doing some or group by something. Let's say for this example, you want to do the sum sales from the whole table. You can write the normal query as the above, select some cell from table, blah, blah, blah. But then if you want to do the sum based on the department, for example, you need to have the group by cost within that. So let's say select department sum sales from table and then group by department, right? But within expressive, you don't really need group by. Actually, that's gonna be like sum over partition by department instead, right? So everything is sit within select statement, not the group by. Actually, you can move group by to the select statement, and then it's gonna run over that as well. So actually, probably you already use writing it, but This is just for the term that they're calling it. And then the schema and partition evolution. So, of course, this is just the description. So just see the example, right? So of course, when we deal with the large amount of data, normally we will put partition in it. So just a quick question, like, do you understand what partition do? See some notes. Okay, so think about the locker, right? We have a large amount of files, a large amount of paper, or think about your folder. You probably have a lot of files there, and then you arrange into the folder. Probably that folder gonna represent your year and then your classroom, probably your course as well. So when you're gonna query or getting the data, right, you go specifically in that folder itself, so it's gonna be fast. Otherwise, you have every file within your document folder, and then you need to go browse everything. So this help with that. And partition, normally we're gonna start by month or by day or by hours, depends on the nature of the data itself. So this example, we start with month, but assuming that you start to work over time, right? And then you see that the month partition didn't work anymore. When we say didn't work, it's kind of performance issue. So you start to partition by date instead. So we start setting up, let's say on March, to use the day instead. So moving forward, right, all the data gonna be partitioned by day instead of month. Moving forward, it didn't touch the previous data that we said that we partitioned by month. So this kind of calling it as schema evolution. So of course, we can have the most granularity of the data, probably start with year or month or day, and then once we see the data pattern, we start to drill down more, partition by hour, partition by minute instead. But what about when we gonna select the data that having the two separate partition setting? In this example, it's February and then March query, right? So of course, the iceberg itself gonna come up with a plan. They see that some of the data in February has been partitioned by month, and then on the March data, it has been partitioned by day, right? So it separate the plan to query the data as two, so that it can effectively just getting the data that suitable for that, which help performance a lot. Of course, it probably not help on the February much, but the March is gonna be a bit faster on that. And then it also have kind of hidden partitioning as well. Of course, when we look at the normal Hive partition without the iceberg, right? When we select the data, even let's say when we specify with this and we only partition by day, for example, it's gonna do the full table scan. So actually, if you graduate out and you work with company with a large amount of data, the admin actually gonna say that you cannot run this kind of query because it's gonna kill the Hive. I have seen a couple of junior data science query using this pattern, and it caused the Cloudera to crash. Agoda, for example. Yeah. So what we do is that we try to enforce the user to use the event like kind of partition specific on that. So of course, when we adding the event date, specify to be like 1st of December. Of course, this gonna, instead of do the full table scan, it's gonna do only partial scan on that partition already. So for normal Hive operation, you're gonna do this, but sorry, behind. But what about using for the iceberg? Actually, it automatically detect that you want to query the data that sit within the 1st of December. So this query is actually don't queue the database as a whole. The iceberg automatically already know that this kind of data already partitioned within the data partition, so it only do the partial scan. So this is more kind of convenience for us, for of course like more the newer data science or data engineer who query the data itself. The online exam shortly gonna be a bit more difficult for third year students, I'm afraid. So I'm gonna skip this copy online and merge on it. Actually, you can do a research by yourself on that, but not if you're not a DBA who maintain the table or maintains the iceberg, you probably don't need to know much on this one. So we're gonna skip on that. So what we need to do, right, if we gonna maintain the iceberg table format, actually we gonna separate it into the healthy and performance model, right? Of course, when we talk about this, we're gonna have the control plane and then the data plane itself. So the control plane is like the admin process that maintain like the catalog of the data, where the catalog gonna be sitting. And of course, the table maintenance is gonna be managed by the user if you use directly with the iceberg. But if you use AWS to data catalog with iceberg feature on that, the table maintenance and everything gonna maintained by AWS for that. And for the performance perspective, right? Of course, there gonna be like compaction. So of course, we probably know about the data compression or compact everything into one. Like, of course, when we deal with data lake, mostly the underlying data files we're gonna separate into a small multiple Array file for that. But we have seen that, of course, it's gonna be good for the query itself, but it probably hard for the maintenance. So the iceberg have the compaction feature. Of course, the performance gonna remain the same, but they combine small object into one object file instead. So this can help with the storage and everything like that. And then they combine the file with the data file itself. And then they store the data using hierarchical sorting, and then they cluster the data using set ordering as well. And with that, they have the remove all metadata. So of course, when we have newer version metadata, so instead of storing infinite like old or expiring metadata, it's gonna help remove from that. We can set the loops like how many days to expire on that and then remove itself. So of course, when we remove the old metadata files, it's gonna be saving the cost of the Amazon S3 itself. And then they maintain the offhand reclamation. So if they have data file or delete file that are not referenced by any data catalog, it's gonna help clean up on that as well. And of course, this is just kind of going back that the data layer, right? So within AWS, which feature of SageMaker that you are using, just ask it. Just for building the machine learning only or having other feature that you are using SageMaker. Just using for AI, right?
For the year student, they already explained the same paper, but because they are from the program, but for fourth year student, they not the same paper for.
So Redshift you'll be using already, right? So just performance and everything. Okay. So going back to this a little bit, so I believe you've been interacting with Amazon S3 already. So actually, when we building the data lake on AWS, the underlying is actually Amazon S3. So that is actually your data lake already. But then you probably use AWS Glue for ETL to load the data into the data warehouse, and then probably to QuickSight in the future for your project, like for visualization and everything. But of course, you're gonna see that you need a place where you need to manage this kind of tool infrastructure as a whole. And there's gonna be a little bit of zero ETL here. So if you have set up your Redshift, your data warehouse, and you want to export those data, let's say, to another team, another department via, let's say, RDS, you don't need to do the ETL, right? You probably just do zero ETL. So you copy the data and then load into the data map itself, because the data warehouse gonna have that clean and centralized data already. And then you probably use federated query. Do you know federated query? Okay. So federated query is, instead of you using, let's say you have the data sit within data lake or within another database. Normally you're gonna have the SQL engine, whether it's gonna be on top of this operational database or you having Google data catalog and query using Athena to the data lake. You use power of the Redshift itself as a compute to query the data from another sources. So it's kind of federated to another data source and then query it. So it doesn't need a high compute, whether it's gonna the data sit within operational database or the S3 data lake, because it used the computational from the data warehouse from the Redshift already. The data can sit on the RDS or S3 itself. It doesn't need to move to the warehouse to query it. So this is called federated query. And then within the Redshift itself, they have some of the machine learning algorithm that you can just use the C4 language to call the machine learning model behind the scene, like forecast and then the anomaly detection, which we have seen the pattern that our customer are using, because mostly data warehouse gonna store like sales data already, and then they want to forecast, let's say next month or next 3 months sales. So instead of building the machine learning model separately, they can just use the SQL call forecast function, and then it's gonna build behind the scene the machine learning for that behind the scene. So of course, if we talk about the lake house, this is more starting to become the trend. Actually, there's nothing much really. It's just combine the data lake and then the warehouse into one platform, right? So they just take the lake from the data lake and then the house from the warehouse itself. And then you can have any data format from the data lake, and then you have the computation power from the warehouse. That's actually the end goal of the lakehouse itself. And then you can have on top service, whether it's gonna be business intelligence, the dashboard itself, or the AI that come in and then get the data from the lakehouse. So for some, if you have been using SageMaker, we have been modify SageMaker a lot. Actually, the initial code name from SageMaker, the new version, is actually SageMaker Unified Studio. And then the previous version of SageMaker becomes SageMaker AI. So SageMaker AI is just the place for data scientists to do all the work, right? To write the Python script, build the model, build the inference pipeline. But now SageMaker, when I say SageMaker, now it's gonna be SageMaker Unified Studio. Actually, we combine nearly every service into one. So if you use AWS Glue, Redshift, Lake, other service, Lake Formation, and actually some of the QuickSight and then Amazon Bedrock for agentic AI, it has been combined into Amazon SageMaker. Of course, behind the scene, they still solving individual service, but then you can just access the SageMaker to build this kind of solution or this kind of platform. ปิดให้สนิทด้วยจ้ะ Okay, so what we aim for is that, of course, we aim for unified experience, open format, and then secure. So actually, when I talked earlier that we build SageMaker to compete with Database, this is actually the platform that I'm referring to. So within the SageMaker Lakehouse, actually there kind of can interactive between the S3 data lake and the Redshift itself. So you can use further lake query that I have mentioned before from the Redshift to query the S3 data lake, and behind the scene also have with zero ETL integration, whether it's gonna be within AWS ecosystem, whether it's RDS or Aurora. And then the external service like Salesforce or ServiceNow or other CRM service that we have seen. So instead of you doing the ETL and then publish into the Salesforce, for example, it can directly zero ETL, like copy the data file and then load it to Salesforce directly without any ETL process. And this is the whole picture that I mentioned about the SageMaker. So the Redshift, the Glue, Athena, I believe you have been using AWS Glue already, Athena as well, and then Amazon QuickSight that you're gonna build the visualize the dashboard on. Of course, we have integrated with other service like streaming the data. I'm not sure if this course teaching about streaming data yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
in that people with that with Kafka and smart streaming as well, that we gonna be in the later weeks. So that if there's any service that we can recommend, that gonna be nice as well.
โอเคครับ so of course ครับ the rest is just gonna be I believe most of you already done this so I'm gonna talk a little bit on this slide before jumping to the data mesh concept right? So we have the data source in at the bottom layer, right? And then you probably do the batch ETL, for example, that you build AWS group, and then you set it to run probably daily or every event trigger. So let's say if there is the data chain for the data source, you trigger this to AWS group to run the ETL process, right? And then there's also streaming. So think about like the Facebook data or the Line application data that you send Line, right? So it's kind of streaming. You don't know when the data gonna come. And of course, this gonna be pulling up and into the lakehouse itself. So within this SageMaker lakehouse, you're gonna have build the SageMaker catalog. So actually, it's behind the scenes school data catalog. It just changed the name on that matters, of course. But it's gonna have much more feature on that. So you have business catalog. So instead of just the data catalog itself, you have the business catalog that you can ask the business catalog. For example, you don't know which table to query on. Instead of you look at the table catalog to see, guess which field you want to use, the business catalog and actually the metadata business term that gather this kind of table catalog again. So let's say if you want to query the sales for this province, for Chiang Mai province, for example, what table you're going to use, which column you're going to use. So you can just ask this business catalog itself. And this business catalog comes with Gen AI, so you can use even Thai language to ask it, and then they're gonna respond to you. And in some capability, it's gonna write the C4 language for you as well for that. And then for the catalog and the lakehouse itself, it's gonna sit within the iceberg layer that I have mentioned earlier. So we provide like compute and the S3 to store the iceberg data format. And then on top of that, you have other consumption layer that you probably use like SageMaker AI or QuickSight to do the visualization on that. So because I asked earlier and probably not everyone know what is the data mesh is. Actually, data mesh is starting to become popular within the organization, especially the large one. If you go to all the major banks, for example, SCBX, KBTG, or even the telco, True Digital and AIS, they all use this kind of data mesh infrastructure already. So just to give a little bit of background on that, why we need this. So when we talk about the data lake and data warehouse, we talk about centralize everything, right? So we get the data from the department, other department, and then centralize it in one place. They start to see the bottleneck, right? Because everything rely on the central that IT to store the data lake, the data warehouse. So we have seen that the business start to move slower within this foundation. So instead of having centralized everything within the IT team, the data lake sit on that department instead. So let's say computer engineer department have their own data lake and data warehouse. Accounting department have their own data lake and data warehouse, but of course we still want to sharing the data to each other. But having separate the data lake and warehouse become much more difficult to share to each other, right? So the data mesh itself is actually helping this kind of infrastructure. So we treat every data platform that's sitting on each different team, whether it's going to be department, even project, for example, as different data domain instead, right? So it sits within that team, sit within another team, but we have centralized data governance layer instead. So of course the IT department gonna having control over everything, but they probably don't have the data for everything. They just come up with the governance policy, the governance with everything, and then they delegate to every data domain, so that matters. And then they also have the centralized data discover. So instead of each team sending the data directly to the IT team, they just send kind of the data catalog to the centralized team. So each team, when they want to query the data, it come into this central data discovery. So they know that which data sit in with which data domain team. So the query can dynamically direct to that data lake or data warehouse for each team. So this provides the flexibility on the self-service and the data sharing much more faster. And then they can have control over the data sharing itself, right? So instead of, let's say, the HR team need to send every payslip data to the centralized IT, they can keep the payslip between themselves, and then they can opt to share or not to share this to the wider audience, for example. So the core principle gonna be we have the data owner. So every team now become the data owner, right? So it act like the node. So this node probably have the data for computer engineering student, and the another department have their own node that represent the data for their own department. And then the data engineer work with the data owner to build the data pipeline, building the platform, building the catalog by their own. And then we have the data steward, which actually represent the ITT, the centralized IT. So of course they need to have the governance that comply to regulatory. Once you go out, you're gonna heard of PDPA a lot. And of course it's about the personal data, right? About the masking of the data, like your Thai national ID or passport number. Actually, we store it as the mask key. We don't really store it as the 13-digit number on that because of the regulation on that matters. And then the data consumer, of course, like I have mentioned, everyone can be data consumer and data producer at the same time. So for the data consumer, it's gonna help with self-service. If you want to know the data, which area of the data, you can just query it out by yourself and then build the dashboard or build the service on top of that data. So that's the overall concept of the data mesh, right? So because like Ajahn mentioned a little bit on the streaming data, so I'm gonna touch a little bit on the streaming data itself. So, of course, if we talk about streaming data, we're gonna heard Kafka is kind of the king of the market. Like they're gonna be have some Spark a little bit, but mostly Kafka is like the majority owner of this market. So of course they're gonna be different than batch data. So between batch you process the data in bulk. So probably like a large amount of data, but streaming you process small data, but in real time or as it's alive. Or even you have individual record, you probably process that at that time, or probably micro batch, for example, every 10 seconds, every 15 seconds. If you work with IoT device, you're gonna have work like every 30 seconds, for example. And then the speed of the data itself, instead of minutes or hour, we talk about millisecond to second. And then, of course, the use case for that is real-time analytics, right? So one of the key use case that you probably use or not use yet is the credit card fraud, right? So you swipe credit card and then the Visa or MasterCard already know that transaction is fraud or not. That is actually building the machine learning model on the streaming data itself. It doesn't build on the batch data. So from AWS perspective, we're gonna have three modes of MSK, manage Kafka. So the left-hand side is probably your normal one. It's actually building on the cluster. So if you heard of Hadoop, it's actually that kind of thing. They have a set of server building on top of that, and then they're processing, looking for the data and then process in real time. And then we have Express Broker, which is more elastic than the traditional cluster. And then we have serverless that you don't need to deploy the infrastructure on that matter. AWS gonna look at the traffic and then forecast the infrastructure to use for that matter. So this is like kind of the concept of the Kafka itself. So if you work with Kafka, you're gonna work a lot as standard broker. So we have the data producer and then the data consumer, right? And then the Kafka itself gonna be the data broker that like subscript to the producer. So if there is any data produced from the producer, whether it's gonna be push or pull. So when you work with streaming data, there's these two modes of data, like push and pull. So push is like the notification from your phone, let's say from your Line application. You push send, and then that message got pushed, and then it is the streaming data itself. But then the pull, if you, let's say the internet is not stable, then you go to your mail application, you probably need to pull that to refresh your outbox. And then that kind of pull the data that sit within the server to load it into your outbox within your phone. So most of the Kafka is actually the pull architect. So it subscribe to the producer and then wait for producer to generate the data before pulling the data in. So why the Kafka and normally use the pull? Because the Kafka doesn't know the push, like we don't know when the data gonna come. So instead they use pull as the architect for this. So of course, for each broker is think about the cluster of the server. So for each server have the compute and have their own storage to keep the data itself before passing to the data consumer. But for Express Broker, for this architecture is more on AWS. So instead of each broker have their own storage. So we have the centralized storage where every broker interact with this centralized storage, right? So why is this better? For example, if one broker goes down, for example, the data that sit within, let's say, broker tree gonna lost forever. So there's no way to recover this kind of streaming data. So we have the storage as centralized. Let's say if we have one data broker goes down, the storage is still there for the broker one or broker two to pick it up and pass it to consumer application. So the rest is just about the partition of the data. It's similar to what we did on the data warehouse. Actually, it's very same. They partition the data that they receive from the producer and then write it into the data broker. And then, of course, it depends on how we're going to set up the Kafka. We probably have topic on that. So think about how we arrange our email inbox. We probably have category 1, category 2, and category 3, right? So this Kafka gonna have that as 3 topics. And then once the email sit within any topic, it's gonna load as partition into that topic before passing to consumer layer. So I think that's overall it for the Kafka and the overall presentation. Before I move forward to Q, is there any question for this?
Are there any questions from student team? Because today I think that we heard many interesting keywords. Data warehouse from our class, right? Data lake, right? That we did from the with that. And Akanet, let me ask from Akanet as well. Akanet also mentioned about lakehouse, combining the data lake and data warehouse together. So in your lake, you can perform warehouse as well. And lastly, new concept, data mesh. I didn't familiar with concept of data mesh before, but I think that concept is very interesting. And at the end, Adam Net also mentioned about Kafka service as well as free. That's gonna be we can have from this class we can have around 3 more weeks. So I don't think that's enough though. And I need a lot more. But anyway, 1 week we're gonna be data streaming as well. So you will get hand dirty or you will have lab in data stream. You can tell if you notice in the slide though. Can you tell the name of that service though? Kafka, right? And Kafka in Amazon, what is the name of that one? RVM. Perfect. Perfect. Very good. Very good. Very good. Okay, so we will use that service later on. Okay. So I think that a lot of concept. Any question to academic part before we proceed though? Any question? It is for me, academic club, I have question on in database though. Because database is kind of like a decentralized concept that each department will have their own data mart, small data warehouse or small, they manage their own data by themselves. I'm so curious that how sales team, marketing team can manage their own data.
Yeah. So actually, we see the pattern that we have seen that each department have their own data team, especially the large organization. For example, like I used to be in SCB before. So within marketing team, within credit card team, within the finance, within the audit, they have their own data team. And then we have another data centralized data team that we come up with the policy. So this kind of data team, we talk with each other and then we enforce the governance, the policy to each team, and then they're gonna implement by their own. So, and of course, right now we have seen that even marketers have a lot of data knowledge already. So I believe next, I think today or next couple of days, they have the market, right?
Yes.
The market
Very
and
big event.
yeah, the big data, Paragon, I think everyone talk data already, all the marketers. And actually in some university that I have seen, the marketing department actually learn data science already. I have seen that because if you ask the data science or data engineer to learn marketing, it's gonna be more difficult than the marketing learn data science, data engineer actually. We have seen the pattern. And actually the professor from the US and the UK that we have worked with, they already implement this for a couple of years already. And even they probably mention about like computer engineer, they want to obsolete it. And then move the data science into every department because right now every unit, every team gonna use the data and have the knowledge of AI. Right. So it kind of sitting in between the transition, I would say that.
I like your comment though. Data science in the past 10 years ago, we teach for 4 year students in engineering faculty. But now today, data science becomes something that very common. Implement in second year student. And it can be learned in other as well. But one thing that now is difficult to find when other data scientist is data engineering, because it's come with engineering. You need to know command line. You need to understand architecture, computer, and many things. It's still in engineering domain. So this kind of data end still be with faculty of engineering, not go to marketing, not go to other department yet. And very hard for me myself. Data scientist now, I can find very quickly, but at data end, it's very difficult to find. To recruit this position. Yes. My last question before we proceed to Akantu. Since right now data is centralized, managed by each department with base concept. For enterprise company, they need to do something like a view across, analyze across data for the whole department. How can they do that? Because right now data is centralized though.
So actually probably use this one.
Or they still need to have like a centralized data warehouse coexist with database.
They don't need to, but they're gonna need the centralized data catalog. So when the query, let's say, coming from team A, it's gonna go to centralized data catalog. And this data catalog say that, let's say this data is with team B and another set of data sit with team C. So that when you query, it's gonna split the plan and go into separate the data lake or data warehouse. So this kind of architecture show that. So we have the federate governance as the middle layer, and then everything spread it out.
Yeah, so any other question? I think for me myself, I'm very impressed and very interested in this type of topic though, because it's just, again, data scientists always come from academic because it's knowledge. New model, transformer, large language model come from academic, but as data age, tools, it's come from industry, not to be honest. Industry lead ahead academic goal because it's practical use case. So as for me myself, I learned a lot, to be honest. Any question or any comment before we proceed? Yes, go ahead.
I noticed the express MSK, like you said that the underlying data is centralized, right?
Centralized storage.
I mean, like the Kafka, they already distribute the charts across multiple stuff. I think said the fact said.
Yeah.
But why did you say that? Like, if one of the nodes fail, that all the data in that node gone because it normally distributed like in multiple versus in a cluster.
Yeah, so it kind of modified that concept a little bit. It's still using chart and everything, but once that chart get the data, it push the data into centralized storage directly. So in the normal circumstance or Kafka normal circumstance, the data sit within that chart, right? So if that chart or that cluster gone, it's gonna gone with the cluster or that broker. But with the express one, once it receive it push down immediately. So that chart is actually the duplicate from that broker into the centralized storage.
So it's like a extra security.
I would say kind of resiliency because security was still similar to the old concept, but resiliency on the data itself because if that broker die, the data is gone. But now the broker died, the data is still there.
I thought that like one data is like replicated across like multiple, like more than one broker. Am I understanding correctly?
Yes, as a normal Kafka concept, but in the cloud, as mentioned, like we try to separate, let's say decoupling the storage and compute.
Or
Yeah, so the storage part is decoupling from the compute. So if the compute die, the storage still there.
So I think that let's proceed toอาจารย์นะครับคิดอาจารย์ตัวการเนสเลยครับ Well, we the function of the function is can from just and we can help attack to set up so finally
ตรงนี้ได้ครับ
Before you go, one of the things that in AWS we always do is that when we get somebody, we always say that we keep raising our bar. Right? Let's say, sorry about that. What I'm trying to say is that, so you say you raised the bar on the shower. So somebody come after me, raise my bar. So I'm go below the bar. So I need to push myself up into the bar. That's how it's happening in AWS. So when the team get involved, he's better than me because he's data scientist. I'm the infrastructure guy. What happened is we have two top data scientists background, 20-year plus experience, interview him, and he got through. Right. So what I'm trying to say is that we got the best of Philippines, or the best data scientists up here. I don't want you to miss the chance to talk to him, learn from him, and he's really best in class. Just we have the record, just go through the record. If you want to talk to him, spend your time to talk to him. If you want to know how the data scientist is moving, he knows everything. Just when you get into the market, try to find a job, curious that I learned the data scientist, what next? What should I feel when I can get a job in the market? I think it's some of the best.
Thank you very much, Adam U. So, topic break, and you can have discussion with Adam Net and Adam U. And even though we run out after the class, we can also talk with them as well. Thank you very much, Mark. Time for a little bit slow. Yes.
That's the
over here. Otherwise, I'm going to comment in. Anyways, let's get it. Okay, so let's continue. So I just opened the terminals. I was thinking I'll go to presentation, but I think let's do the demo. Hands up. So before we go into this, what's your IDE to display? VS Code, cursor. Oh, okay. I ask one more.
Coded.
What's that? Codec. Oh, you said everything. Then I have the poll for you. Kilo. Okay, so do we know that what is the kilo? Can anybody try? I don't have the swag today. What is a kilo? KIRO kilo. Okay, so we are not doing our part best enough. We just need to continue our part. So the reason I open IDE because I just want to use to understand. Well, you have another idea of AWS. We have one of the agentic AI tool in IDE. In this case, I'm going to use the Hero CLI. So we have the Hero. This is the first time, and hopefully it's not going to be the last time that you are see this tool, or we can actually download the package because this is going to be helping you your project. I try to sell the best out of this, and I hope after this you install two. I'm not sure if you can. I can ask credit from PNAP, then it's okay. So we got the tools, IDE tools called Hero. Hero. Simply, Hero is agentic AI tool, right? You use ChatGPT, use Gemini, use Cursor, use Codec. Those all can generate the code. On the other side, we have the tools, IDE or Hero. Hero comes to two flavors. First, IDE itself. Another one is a CLI. So I just go to CLI because we don't have a lot of them, right? The idea here is that rather than you just go into traditional coding, and so I'm not the coder as well, right? So I guess I'm the one that can represent best from non-developer. So I'm using this one every day to build the stuff on AWS. So if we go into the lecture just happening right now, imagine that nowadays we talk a lot about agents. So if you go through the data pipeline, the whole pipeline itself, if I want to use the tool to build agent to do the task, we say that data engineering is taking time. We have a limited resource of data engineering. We don't have data scientists. We don't have somebody who can create a dashboard for us. The whole process really a couple of people, because a couple of people are giving you out the different skill set, right? What can be data engineering? And just gone through all the data, learn the data in-house, try to understand the data, do normalization, cleansing the data, and we go through that component. If you want to create the agent using AI for those tasks, right? As I told you, coming from the future, help you on the project, is coming from the past, help you with the foundation, right? And this guy can actually help you to deploy the service to the AWS right away, right? So if you want to create the data pipeline, either it's going to be service on AWS, you can install later, but let's try this one right now. I'm not testing this one yet. It could be failed. It's okay. It's fine, right? If you want to create the whole data pipeline, team who got 80, 90s, 80, 90s, right? Okay. So I'm going to go to you. If you want to create the whole data pipeline, how many agents do we need? The whole data pipeline. Don't use your Gemini. It's not allowed. Okay. How many agents do we need? How many rows? Think about row. How many rows do we need? Okay. 90, you have a both. Something class. I'll tell that back up with insurance again. So how many rows we need in that pipeline? The whole pipeline. First, do we need? What do we need? Okay, at the action, what do we need from the action perspective? The whole data pipeline. Okay, from the class, who's going to give the idea for our friends? Whole data pipeline, how are we going to start? I heard that you all learned about this to give an idea about this. I'm not going to move from this one. We are in data engineering class. The first one is ETL. ETL, who's thinking that first one is ETL? The first step of the data engineering is ETL. Okay, you're not giving the hands, it means that you know what's the first step of the ETL. So I move to this side. Okay, we need somebody to give the idea what is the first step of the data pipeline. Okay, that's a logical behind that, right? We need to understand the data that, but in action, what is the first step of the data pipeline? Very first step, ingestion, right? So if you wear the hat of the CEO, right, you know that the data in the company is right everywhere. And the first step to be able to gather that is the data ingestion. That's the first step. That's the Kafka stuff that Ajay is just talking about. Right? We have small data set, we have big data set, we have real-time data set, we have batch data set. Whatever that you have in any place, in any devices, the first step is ingestion. Okay? Right? That's the first thing. Second thing, ETL is a bit big. Just give it narrow down. What's the second step? Second step after ingest. Sorry? Transform. Okay, okay. That's the next step after the next step. Extract. Okay. Okay, so data ingestion, when we say data ingestion, it could be part of extraction because we want to extract, ingest the data into the pipeline. Question is what's the next step after that? Sorry? Keeping in, that's ingestion kind of scenario. Next one. Cleaning data, right? That's the right one. We have the Excel sheet, some of them you have the person go outside, and then they said that, okay, I collect the data, I put it into the Excel, and then you got now, right? You got error in data that you will see. So ingest, cleansing, and then what next? Transform. And then what next? Once you transform, ingest, clean, transform. Okay, everyone say loads, right? That's an ETL. What is a load? This actually means. Oh, that's one without questions. You can use your helper. Press the button. That's it. Okay. Continue with this. Load. Okay, load to where? Where do you load? These two. Okay, okay. That's catalog, right? But you have to have the place that you load the data to the database. Okay, that's one of the option. I think you learn S3, right? And then what's next step after that one? Okay, everyone learn ETL, extract, transform, load. Very good job. What's the next step after that one? Perform the analysis, right? Yeah, perform the analysis. That's a whole pipeline. That's the whole pipeline of the ETL. So if you do that this day, what do? You're just going to ML engineer world, right? Just like, okay, I cleansing the data, just do normalization of the data, right? Just, do pop encoding, stuff like that, everything, whatever that we do in the past, even that we do that in today. But again, I'm coming from the future. So what I'm going to tell you this day is that actually just use all the tools you have this day. Gemini, Codec, Cursor, and in the future, we are going to use Europe because I'm coming from the future. So you're going to use all the agentic AI tool to create all those roles. When I say all those row, it's what again? Data ingestion row, right? Person or services, the one who cleansing the data, and the one who transform the data, the one who create the dashboard visualization. If you think about that, what's happening here? What's happening here? We create 4 agents doing 4 tasks. Think about it. I create a four kind of the 4 agents, and in this case, using Hero. I need one myself. Okay. Create data pipeline agents to it's now and be sure that's when it's like okay, great. All right. What's happening? What's happening here? Anyone can keep moving. I should have one answer like this. What's happening here? We create the agent. So you guess on itself. That's what we like. Okay. All right. So the way we manage this thing here is actually slightly different. You gone from the past with him through all the architecture, design, the patterns of the data. Now we are going to use it. So one thing I want you to remove from our sessions today is that we are going to replace boundary statement, right? Change your role to use this method. That's the end goal. That's it. And if you can't, if you get like 30% from the previous session, you need to get 100%. Because once you get 100% from that one, you can just go for this algorithms. You change your role from just going to the data understanding alone to be everything. Right? In this case, mean that you are going to build the agent. Yeah, but yet you still need to understand the foundation. That's very important. Very, very, very important, because the way you can use this better is because you have the knowledge. So I can just go simply to say, okay, create some Kafka on AWS, deploy for me, because I know Kafka. And then I know better, say that, okay, I need 3 partitions because I want redundancy, create the availabilities. I want speed of that query into the partitions and everything, because I know deeper, so I can design deploy service better. Right, that's the idea. Okay, so let's see from this one. So I'm sure that you know how to use this AI tool. I'm not here to teach you all to use the AI tool, right? So what I try to say here is that you can use it through the whole data pipeline process. That's the first step. That's the first step. So it's creating you or the dummy data, mock data for you, right? And then you see that, okay, let me show here. If you know all the terms here, what's that? So yeah. If you know all the terms here, you are in the advanced step of everyone already. Right? Let's say that you know that, okay, the ETL agent, we are talking about ETL just right before I create the agent. So the ETL agent said that it will just transform the data and load it to S3 and add that for QuickSight. Simple as that. Doesn't mean that you don't have to know the foundation of how it works in this case. This is very, very important, just like saying this again. So I'm sure that everyone here go to pandas. Pandas, yeah. Everyone is going through the pandas, right? And then you know pandas or those the library in the pandas, everything, or the function of pandas. So you see here, I'm sure that some of you also learned Glue. Glue is the service on AWS using to perform the ETL. Right, you have pandas to clean the data set, or the data you have is fed as field data set, right? Then now what you can do is that you use it's like you use the glue for ETL. Okay, that's the next step. So you can see that the data generator, then we have this one can consider as one of the agent because usually we have to go through write your code and everything for generate the data, and then you have ETL in agent. In this case, what we can do is we can do two things. We can just go with the ETL agent, or we can break that into the set that we make decision on top of this. Right? So in a mindful of time, I'll just go into this, or we probably don't need to. Well, at the end of the day, this is what we have to go through, right? We are over this kind of thing. All right. This is the first step. We do. You see that? So in the code, you are the pipeline for us. So that's why the first thing when I ask this is throughout the whole process of the ETL, what we need to do. Right? Because that's important. We need to know what we need to do, what we have to do. And then we need to know what service can be picked up and used to deploy. And even better that we go down and deeper, like Janice just talked earlier, that okay, we choose between A or B. And we choose between a Kafka, or we just go SQS. We need to know the use case first, and then we come down to the service to deploy on AWS. So you see that the data pipeline is going to create, and then S3 bucket is going to create. If you know S3 bucket is the data repository, when you do data aggregation or ETL, we put it into S3. That's why in this case, S3 has been created as a foundation of the data foundation on AWS. Right. Do you notice something? What's the difference here between the tools that you use and the one I'm showing? What's the difference? The tools know AWS so well. Right? Why? Can you tell why the tools know AWS so well? Because it's built by AWS. Exactly. Use Kilo. It's very good tool. I mean, he's using quad core work, but somehow, somewhere, I'm still struggling with Kilo. Kilo can do everything for me. I'm happy. I never try something else because it's because it's really good for me. Okay, so actually just keep on going. We got the script, we got the agent. So I just want to show you one thing before we move into the lab, because I know we have a limited of time. But once this guy finish, I want to show you one thing that in the future you will have to use this to show your work. Just let it come through this a bit. Share installation. I'll kill it if it doesn't work later on. Okay. While we are waiting, any questions so far? Any impression? What's the difference? And what you use? Any questions from anybody? All right. I'm sure that I think your teacher will say, not to use keyboard. It's too easy for you. Okay. And the good thing is that because he knows already, right, then he is going to know that you are able to build very fast, much faster than the past. This actually means the theory part going further. Right? Because if you don't know the theory or foundation of this, it's very difficult to build a very, very good infrastructure or service or data lake, data pipeline on AWS, right? So the foundation, the theory is going harder for sure, but in this case. So what I want to show you, one thing, because these guys keep going. It's in queue. So you see my prompt. So I say that deploy the agent to AWS Agent Core. It's a service that you'll be hearing more and more in work in the future. Yeah, but the idea here is that who's using Cloud Cowork already, start using that already. You got your own agent on your laptop, right? The next question is how you bring your agent to production. You turn on your laptop 24/7 for production? Probably not. It's difficult to scale your laptop. Are you going to bring your laptop, clone it, deploy on AWS, running single instances? Single instance, one instance, one VM. Are you going to do that?
I think
Okay, that's the difference anyway. Okay, Hero is the tool to build the agent, right? You can build the code like and deploy on AWS. That's the difference, mental model. You have your code go to your file and read your file, summarize, send you email. That's the agent behind the scene. But when we come into the real world, what we do is that they will tell you, okay, so we know exactly that we need to run this ETL command. You have two options. First, you create a script. Second, you create the agent, right? You create a script that's very static. You have the same input, you get the same output. You create the agent, you teach the agent, you get the different input. Or you probably get the different input, it learns and it generates you the different output. That could be the idea as well. Right. So if you look at this, what I try to do is say that it's going to create the project called data pipeline project, and then it's going to deploy agent on AWS Agent Core. Right? And just deploy this. Now your agent that can read the file on your laptop can be moved to AWS, deployed in production fashion. Right? We are talking about the production. It means that the website that we use every day is the website of the bank, website of the retail website that we are using. Okay, so it's going to deploy the agent into AWS. If you look at this, say that deploy agent to agent for runtime. If we step back a bit in terms of the technology, so we start of this. So we have the agent. Okay, first of all, everyone has the same understanding, common understanding about the agent. Right? So we know what agent is. They will survive. And ask you difficult questions. What this guy is talking about. Okay, so I just want one person, right? Whoever in the class, what is the agent in this case? In your understanding, what's the agent? Very everyday AI agent. Can somebody tell me what is the agent?
That just like sometimes.
That's a context. Good job. Very good. Another one. That's too fluffy. Just give me something. Just one word.
The system that can
Oh,
automatically form.
okay. That's very close. I want one word. One word. One word. What's agent in our context? One word. Start with C, followed by O, and then D, and then E. It's important, right? In this case. Simple as that. When people say that, okay, can you build the agent, create the agent? Can I just say this code? And you are right, right? So we need that is a step further of the agent. When you answer that one, you said that the autonomous system, right? When you said that there's context, you give the personalized the agent. In this case, I create the agent for the data pipeline created to run the ETL pipeline for me and deploy on AWS. So when we look at the agent, again, the idea here is that the idea I want you to understand is that you have the agent or cowork that you run on your laptop. When you bring that agent into production, build that agent in production, then how can we do this, right? So in AWS, actually, if you can see that one, the line 2 in the green box, the second box in the middle, there is a tools, a framework from AWS called Strength. Strength is open source. You can create the agent through the Strength. We call it Strength agent. Simple as that. If you look at the Strength, it's really code to say that you import the Strength library, and then you set the system prompt, and then you set the model you want to use, and then you tell the model that what's the output you want it to respond, and also cover the system prompt. Right. In this case, we use a Strength agent. So I think if I just continue this, it's going to keep going. But you can see that. So here, what we try to do is that we try to deploy the agent. You see the entry point of the prompt or the data coming in. There is a entry point, which is the agent.python that we just built right now, the ETL that we just discussed about, right? Yeah, and then just like go through normal process of agent creation and agent deployment. Quick questions. Here, who's trying to create your own agent before in the room? Okay, very good one, right? Now you know the concept of the agent. In AWS, we use the different framework basic. In AWS, we use the agent to deploy on agent code running in production. I think that's it. And if you run those, if you build those agents before, yeah, we can use agent code to deploy agent. Next question, who's done the agentic AI deployment before? It's difference. Agent, agentic AI. It's difference. Who's done agentic AI deployment before? No. Right. That's fine. I think it's okay. That's what I'm here. Right. So when we deploy the agent into agent core, you want agent to work with the other agent. What happens is that you create different agents. One is to extract the file. Another one is to transform the file, right? And then the other agent is doing the load of transformation into whatever location they want to do. This is the behavior of the agent. It's very human-like that we want agent to work, that to replace our repetitive tasks. That's the idea. So when you talk about agentic system or agentic AI, just go back and think about, oh, we just deployed one agent. What about we deploy 3 agents? Right? The first agent who's doing everything. We always call this agent as an orchestrator agent. The first agent get input. In this case, we could say we prompt it, and we say that okay, look into the error or the null value in all the file for me. Right, that the first agent can do that for you. So on and so forth. The first agent finished the task, we pass on the output into S3 and continue the process, so on and so forth. That's the whole process of the agentic system. What can we do here is that to say this, we can deploy this agent into AWS and use it for our data pipeline. And for sure, if I go through the whole process, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to use another agent to create a dashboard for me. Right? That's the end of the pipeline. Whatever you know today, your teacher also know this, right? Nothing is easy, it's going to be harder and harder. The reason is because everyone, right, with the computer science background and AI too, actually can produce the same result. Right? What I try to say is that you go into the market, if you go and find your job, you're going to say that this day, junior developers having hard time to get a new job, right? That's common everywhere. Then you're going to go to the market. Right? So rather than, well, I would say on top of whatever you learn in the class, then from him. So try to go the next step, right? As I said, from the future. Should get right? So try to learn. Yeah, we will have the lab. You get the hands-on. If you know the whole process, that's the best. You get back to use this to help you with the work. Because when you go out nowadays, we have to accept one fact, right? It's difficult for them to say, okay, you need 7 days. Go into the data understanding, cleansing, transform. No say I can do it in half a day. And you know how to do this. Right? You have the data scientist background, you have deeper knowledge, you have all those foundation, and then you have the tools, and then you can go faster. That's why I want to share in my sessions, right? So look into how can you build your own agent as a first step. Okay, so the prerequisite, you need to know what you have to do. You have to have a very, very, very good foundation. So I said this 3 times, right? Very, very, very good foundation of everything that you do. We are in the era of the foundation is actually much more important than the past. Very, very important. Then when you know the foundation itself, the rest will follow. The rest will follow. You got the tools, you got the technologies coming out every day. Try to write it, use it. I show you the agent core. You can build and deploy agent. It could be dragged up in the future for sure, right? But builders always there. You're gonna work as a software developer somewhere, and then you are the one that build that tools for people to use in the future. You encounter with everyone. I just want to share that how can you all think step further, right? Even though this is the data pipeline, data engineering class or sessions, but think a step further, how to leverage the tools. And again, your teachers know the same thing, so it's going to keep others theory, I'm sure. All right, so we're gonna go into the lab. We have minutes. The labs usually last. We spend usually last about 7 half a day. So you said you have to finish the lab of half a day in 40 minutes. It can be homework. It can be homework. Okay.
How long for the credit though?
It will last for 3 days. Start from this morning,
9:30.
9:30. So we have 9:30 for 2 days. 9:30. So that's 32 hours. There will be the label to say how long the lab will be.
Yes, right.
3 days. But as usual, you never sleep overnight. Finish it. So just go to this one, and then there's gonna be the lab. We can run through. Okay, let's say that is not sure. Okay. This is second stage. With love.
People will post to the link now.
Not valid. Is it your everyone first time to run the lab anyways? Everyone first time, or is this not the first time? Oh, okay. Thank you. No. Once you get the URL, it's gonna ask you for authentications and use your private anything. Use your email to get the code. Get the code, use the code, and then you can come to this page. Right. And as usual, I'm reading this terms and conditions. So now accept and then press join event. So I can speed it a bit. All right. I'm sure everyone can do this. Okay. So we got 22 hours to go. Right. Actually, next time I should ask next class to do only lecture hour. So because we're going to do the last day anyway, what's the difference? Similar to the way that you send homework to your teachers. So you only go like 12 hours to finish by midnight. Okay, that's your, right, that's the next fact. So your brothers and sisters, your fellow student. Okay, so everyone got into this page? Yes? No? Time is already there. So what about everyone else? Okay. Yeah, all good? Okay, all good. Okay, so this is not the first time that I'm not going to explain what is AWS console, right? Not the first time. You use AWS already. Okay, good. All right, from the lab perspective, okay, on the left pane of the screen, so you have two sections, three sections, two that you're gonna use is first AWS account access, then you click on the console, redirect to the console. That's the first one you can use. The second one is that what we call the lab guide, right? The one is calling data engineering immersion day. And then I will let you explain what you have to do here.
So actually the introduction is briefly discussed on course วันนั้นนะครับวันเสาร์อาทิตย์ไปไฮล็อกจะต่างก็ so this is the overall architecture that actually what we try to achieve. So we simulate that we have the RDS sit within the private subnet, and we want to actually ingest into like kind of the data lake within S3. So we use DMS, which is database migration service, to load those data from RDS as CSV file and put it into S3, and then ongoing lab is gonna be like using Glue ETL and Glue data catalog to, and then query the data, and then lastly gonna be QuickSight to visualize the data, right? So this is like the setup for the overall lab, right? And because you can ignore after like setup here because we provide as a workshop already. So if you already at this screen already, so it's like you have complete the setting up. So within this lab, right? So actually you can start from ingestion with DMS, but for those or for Ajahn as well, if you want to try on kind of simulate of the real-time kick steam, so there's some lab here as well. But of course you can, reading and then doing at the same time, or the instruction is gonna be here. What we trying to achieve, and everything. So in this case, it's gonna use like Apache Flink instead of Kafka. So you can test this in your free time as well if you want to. Yep. So for this, I'm gonna talk on the DMS. So actually, there's multiple options here. So we have the main lab that you need to hands-on do the DMS by yourself. And then there's autocomplete or skip. Like, so of course, we're gonna go with option one. So you're gonna do this, the migration lab. So again, because we already set up the infrastructure already, so you can just go in DMS migration lab, and then everything you can just follow through the instruction here. I'm not gonna go one by one because you already use AWS already, like so VPC, need to mention that. and everything is as this, right? And then after you complete the DMS lab, right, you can go to the transforming here. So of course, in this lab, we're gonna try to do the data validation and then do the ETL for the overall files before processing into the next lab for Athena and the QuickSight part. So again, there's a step here that you can follow, and also of course you can try on Apache Hudi as well, which is the iceberg things. The list to lab is optional. So again, if you have time, you can look at it like how to use like job bookmark and Google workflow. But again, I assume that you will already use the Google workflow already. So you can just skip that. So you need to do just data validation in ETL and probably incremental data processing with Hudi. And of course, you're gonna query test it using Athena and then doing the QuickSight to visualization, right? So I think in this lab, it should have the Gen BI part as well, that you need to do, that you can do and do like using natural language to build the dashboard or to build the visualization on this. I think if you want to do it now. There gonna be some a little bit process on that, and if you run into the trouble or issue, then you can ask us now, because you need to do some extra step on this one. And I think for the QuickSight part, it's gonna be the homework for the class as well, I think. Yeah. Yeah, and the rest I think is just you can try and learn it. I think it's not just complementary of that.
So let me confirm a little bit though that the mandatory part, can you just go up a little bit though? Okay, the real-time grid stream, I think that that's gonna be, this is not including your homework, okay, because it's data stream. It's not the main thing yet, we will learn data stream later on, okay? But since you have 3 days, if you have plenty of time, you can practice. I think that that's gonna be good as well. Second one, ingestion with EMS, the whole thing, right? That part. Okay. That one gonna be the thing that you need to finish self-test from AWS lab, okay? Check one, EMS. Check two, yes, transform data with you as well. Because ETL, data highlight always come with you. So that's gonna be the second one. And the third one gonna be query and visualization. Yes, gonna be 3 lab that you need to finish in 3 days. Okay. Any question apart from that? Late automation, data build. Data build, you can think of something like a data pre-processing for say or for modeling, such as one hot encoder, infuse missing value. That part I think it's not in the scope of this course notes. Okay. So 3 lab, DMS, glue, theory with Athena and visualization with QuickSight. 3 things. Any questions about the scope of your homework? You will have 3 days. I want to give you 1 week, but
If you want, it's so kind.
but since you have quota credit for 3 days, so you will have 3 days to finish it though. Okay.
Take my
How can you submit it? Please go to our previous use case that we can capture the screen that we finish this one. After we can see your output. That's the whole one. reach until the end, capture PDF. So gonna be three capture lab one, capture lab two, and capture lab three. Any question? And for even though it's self-test now, but encourage you to start it now because if you have any question, you can still have time to discuss with Adan and and the class will wrap up around 11:55. At that time, you can ask any question to him. At this moment, since start your self-test now, okay? Yes. Go ahead and start with the presentation. คุณครับ
อันนี้เผื่อเป็นไอเดียที่ผมทำกิโลนะครับพอดีมีปัญหาเกี่ยวกับพวกภาษีกองทุนค่อนข้างเยอะแล้วผมก็เขียนแอปไม่ได้อยู่แล้วเป็นดาราไซน์ผมก็ไอเดียเกิดขึ้นมาทำแอปหนึ่งขึ้นมา จริงๆแอปนี้จะทำขายด้วยเปิดMVP ให้ดูนะครับ ก็แบบคำนวณภาษีอะไรนะครับ ก็ไปคว้านกองทุนทั้งหมดในไทยมา ประมาณเพิ่งรู้เหมือนกันว่ามีประมาณ8,000กองทุนทั้งทุกแบงก์อย่างนี้นะครับ แล้วก็ปัญหาหนึ่งก็คือเวลาถ้าออกไปทำงานเนาะอาจจะต้องมีซื้อกองทุนลดหย่อนภาษี หรือว่ากองทุนทั่วไปเพื่อลงทุนนะครับ มันก็จะมีโอเวอร์แลปกัน แต่ว่าเคยคิดไหมว่าพวกกองทุนที่ถือแบบUS นู่นนั่นนี่ US ดาวโจนส์500 S&P 500 ดาวโจนส์100 กับ NASDAQ 100เนี่ยมันโอเวอร์แลปเป็นกี่เปอร์เซ็นต์นะครับอันนี้ก็เป็นแบบที่ผมบิวขึ้นมาแล้วกันใช้เวลาก็ไม่ถึงอาทิตย์นะครับผมก็คุยกับเนี่ยกิโลคุยไปเรื่อยๆอันนี้เป็นเมื่อกี้ของอาจารย์บูจะเป็น CLI นะครับอันนี้ก็เป็นกิโล ID นะครับก็คุยกับมันไปเรื่อยๆให้มันแอบไปสเคป Data จากเซตสเคป Data จากกรตสเคปทุกอย่างมาแล้วก็เก็บไว้นะครับ ก็คือข้อมูลที่อยู่ในอินเทอร์เน็ตเกือบทุกแบงก์ก็เป็นสเคปมานะครับ ก็แล้วมันก็บิวให้เป็นแอปพลิเคชันให้เลยนะครับ ก็ถ้าใช้พวกสอดโค้ดหรือว่าอะไรพวกนี้มันก็จะมีพวกสเตียริ่งกับสกิลนะครับ จริงๆก็เหมือนกันเลยว่าเซตอัพพวกฟอนต์เอนดีไซน์ไว้ที่เป็นสกิลนะครับ ก็เขียนไว้โพสทำอะไรคีย์ที่ข้อเป็นยังไงนะครับ Market Research อย่างนี้จะเป็นยังไงนะครับ ถ้าสมมติอีกหน่อยจะทำ ETL ป้ายได้อย่างเคสของพี่อูอย่างเงี้ยก็มาเขียนสกิลให้มันก็ได้นะครับ เขียนขอบเขตทำนู่นทำนี่ให้มันทำ visualization ขึ้นเว็บเอาไปขายก็ได้นะครับ มันก็มีดีมานอาจจะติด AI dashboard อะไรนะครับ ก็มีหลายบริษัทที่เขาก็พวก SI อะไรพวกนี้นะครับ พวก Data Wow พวกอะไรพวกเนี้ย Giabo อะไรเขาก็ทำพวกนี้นะครับ Daily Tech พวกนี้อันนี้ก็เป็นตัวอย่างแล้วกันว่าคีโลก็ทำได้ทุกอย่างเสริมให้กับพี่บูเมื่อกี้นะครับ
ไม่ได้บอกว่าอยากให้ทุกคนมีปัญหาเรื่องการเงิน
เงินก็ขาดทุน
Okay, you can start your surface now นะครับ and if you have any question at the moment you can ask question to อาจารย์เน็ต and Abu as well today อาจารย์บู present Kiro to you right Gen AI hope you can finish data engineer pipeline very quickly right okay as for me my part to check your project I cannot prevent you to use the tools. To be honest, I can't. The thing is, and I'm not gonna prohibit. But the skill that you need to know is after Hero or other Gen AI tools generate byline for you. how can you validate that is correct or incorrect? So these are the record นะครับ If you use any Gen AI tools, what I mandate you to do two things. First one, transparency. You announce it that which pattern you use. Second one, after it generate, I need your skill to read and explain what it generate for you. So you need to understand it. It's not just generate, deploy, and I can use now without understanding. That's not the main purpose for this part. But if it's generate and you can completely understand the whole process. Okay, this block, this block, this block, this block, you understand it and it's generate correctly. I don't mind because it still accomplish my goal as well. To clarify, may I ask you a question? Who took programming course with me on your first year? Who took programming course with me on your first year? On your first year? Oh, you not pass about 4 year student, you didn't take programming course with me? Oh, okay. But anyway, in your first year, we didn't allow you to use Gen AI. Can you guess why? Or I auto complete code why? Can you guess? Do you want to guess? We,
programming is like you don't mistake out to it that you guys can probably be like correctly. It's out by the very on our involved. So
correct. That's the thing. Problem solving. That's the thing. Another thing is, if you don't have very strong background in programming, how can you know that the generated code is correct or incorrect? So before you use Gen AI tools, any Gen AI tools, you need to have strong background beforehand. That's why the same concept for this course นะครับ we teach you manually and then you are allowed to use Hero and don't mind as long as you can explain the pipeline to me. Understand that? Okay, no? นะครับ That's the best I can answer.
ดังนั้นอาจารย์ไม่ห้ามเด็กนะ บอกก่อนครับไม่ห้ามนะไม่ห้าม
And your teacher is so kind of important. You know what's happening in market? Every token that you are generating is actually meeting the company for you, right? So what's happening in the market is actually that they said that the latest token you use is that considering the base outcome for the company because they pay less. Right? In this case, your teacher is so kind. If I'm your teacher, I'm going to come, you'll have caught. No, it's just this.
$5 credit for your AWS, use it wisely.
Yeah, I think that's a very good practice because when you go out, right, no one is going to give you unlimited money, including the infrastructure, including the tokens that you use for any of the tools you have, right? And if you think about it, this day, all those companies, is it recording?
Yes.
all those companies like for Google, even AWS, the way that they let you use all the token is to help you to be in that ecosystem first. So usually means that at some point they will increase the price and all the company will say that you need to spend less because it's that extent on your end. Right? So if you look at it, all the code that you are generating need to be proper optimized as well, not just generated. You will enter into that cycle in the future.
Thank you very much ครับ time for surprise and they will be here until 11:55 and then wrap up the course today นะครับ You have 3 days for your homework 3 labs นะครับ
ดูว่าน้องใส่นะ
มันโหลดเองเป็นเชื่อม ไฟอันที่ไม่ใช้แล้วก็แต่ว่ามันก็ยังเป็นที่ใช้ก็แต่ซึ่งต้องเป็นสำคัญก็สื่ออะไรแล้วตอบไหม
ก็มันเป็น USB มันใส่เลยที่ผ่านมาจะมาได้
เด็กนี้ใส่ไม่เลย
ไปเจอเราต้องอยู่ให้เราดูนะเวลาบทสนทนาออกเลยจะได้ไปที่เอาให้มาปีเป็นเป็นต้องจำเป็นใช้ได้เหมือนกันอย่างของบอกเพราะว่าอย่างตัวตำแหน่งเดียวนี้แต่ว่าที่เจอเจอปกติพี่ก็ต้องโฟกัสไปตรงนี้ที่เรียกอ่านสัตว์จากตีแล้วคือผมก็เลยต้องเรียนแต่ว่ามันต้องคือตอนแรกผมอ่านต้องตีทวายอะไรบอกเขาอินเซสซ์อินเอสเลยคือมันจะบอกเพียงเลยเพราะมันจะมี3 ขั้นเราเองเฉพาะเข้าใจว่ามันควรจะแชร์มันเสร็จแล้วเพราะว่ามันเสร็จมันชื่อในตัวสต็อกของสาวจะได้บอกในที่เราก็ไม่ได้มีการสร้างอะไรซึ่งไม่ได้ลองดู process คนใส่ไม่ได้ฟังคนจะเล่นพูดอะไรนะเสียงโอ้ยอยากเล่นว้าวนี่ไม่ได้โดยให้สักประมาณนี้ครับไม่ตกกว่าครับตัวครับใช่ใช่ครับไม่มีเสียงต้องส่งมาในอิน
อะไรตามยังไม่มาเป็นแบบซ่อนไว้อยู่ในนั้นอีก VPC หนึ่งไว้แล้วมันจะไม่เปิด
วันนี้ที่ข้อมูลก็เลยเปลี่ยนสะดวกก็พอดีไม่หน่อยอยากถามเป็นเนี่ยอยู่เลยครับผมอยากรู้ว่าในอนาคตแบบ data scientist เลยว่าเด็กเรียนแบบ data scientist จะเป็นยังไงอ๋อก็คือแต่ว่ามันแค่เราก็ใช้ศาสตร์ของครับดีนะน้อยลงเว้ยเอาเลยเป็นประเด็นเดี๋ยวขอถามครับเราผมอยากรู้ว่าไอ้ DMS มันเป็น Chain Data Structure ยังไงที่จริงมันก็ดีกว่า Batch Injection อยู่แล้วครับว่าแบบในมุม use case เอง
ใช่
เอาแล้วมันมีข้อเสียไหมครับว่าแบบมันแพงกว่ากัน
อืมมันก็ไม่สั่งคนไหนก็เสียง
มีอัปเดตไหมครับ
มันจริงๆถ้าแบบ migrate พวกที่ source มันเป็น database มันจะใช้เรียนหลัก
อ๋อ
นอกจากว่ามันก็มีเวที่เขาอยากลดคอสจริง
ทำยังไง
ๆเพราะ database ทั่วไปมันก็สามารถดับลงมาได้
อ๋อ
ก็แบบใช้พวกคอนจอมใช้
อ๋อ
เป็น
อ๋อ
ขีดแมนนวลกันนี้
อ๋อ
ก็คือก็ต้องไป
ใช้ SFTP
แต่ส่วนใหญ่ที่เห็นนะถ้าเป็น initial load จะใช้พวกคอร์สแบบลีนูแบบดังมากแล้วก็ไปโหลดส่วน data structure พวกเนี้ยมันก็เขียนสคริปต์ค่อนข้างยากเราก็จะใช้ DMS มาซ่อม
อ๋อ
มัน
ผ
ก็
ม
จะ
เห็น
คอสแค่นั้น
ผมเห็นถ้าเกิดเขามีบางคนเขาใช้ Chain Data Structure ใช่ไหมเขาใช้ไอ้ตัว Tritium มันน่าจะเขียนยากกว่า
ก็แล้วแต่คนถนัด
อ๋อ แล้วด้านล่างไอ้ CDC ที่จริงมันคืออะไร
คือมันก็จะดูว่า Data คือมันก็มีพวกเรียกว่าแฟลกแล้วกันเช็คพอยอะไรพวกเนี้ยแบบเอา Data ไปแล้วเท่าไหร่แล้วมันก็จะดูว่ามีเช็คพอยต์ลงที่มันติดไปเพิ่มไปแล้วมันก็จะเอาแค่ตรงใหญ่
อ่า แต่ว่า engine มันไม่ใช่ Spark ใช่ไหม
ไม่ใช่
มันก็จะไม่แพง
ก็จริง ๆ มันจะคิดแค่ตัวอินฟาที่เราเพราะว่าตอนที่เซตอัพ DNS จะต้องไปเลือกอินสแตนว่าเราไซซิ่งเท่าไหร่
อ๋อเพราะเหมือนของอาชัวเหมือนเขาชอบแบบโฆษณาเรื่องไอตัวอาชัว copy tool อ่ะ
อืม
อันนั้นมันเหมือนจะเป็น Spark แล้วเหมือนเป็นแบบ ingestial batch
ครับ
เป็นตอนเย็นอะไรเงี้ย
ตัว DMS เนี่ยมันingest จาก source มาบน cloud ใช่ไหมครับที่แรกที่เราก็จะเหมือนเกี่ยวกับ Spark
ปกติมึงใช้ Spark.read ขึ้นมาได้เลยเหมือนใน lab เนี่ยเขาใช้ Spark.read ขึ้นมาเลย
ได้ไปปากก็เป็นจากมันน่าจะติดบอทตัวนี้ในการเปลี่ยน
ใช่ไหมจริงว่ะ
ติด
เพราะว่าที่เรามันเป็นการ
จริง
จ่ายราคาคอมพิวเตอร์
แต่ใน lab ก็ทำไงใน lab ก็ทำ
แบบผมเห็นภาพเลยนะถ้าเราใช้ DMS ในการเปลี่ยนจากเรามี error อยู่แล้วเอาไปเป็นบาร์เก้ในบอท
แต่ผมเห็นว่าเวลามันพอมันเป็น change data structure แล้วมันเหมือนพอมันเปลี่ยนทีนึงใช่ไหมครับเราก็เปลี่ยนเป็นไฟล์ใหม่เพราะ anyways มัน support ไม่ได้แบบเข้าไป insert ในเพราะปลั๊กที่มัน immutable
เป็นไฟล์
อ๋ออย่างนี้ถ้าเปลี่ยนล้างครั้งก็มีล้างไฟล์ใช่ไหม
ไม่น่าถึงขนาดนั้นแต่ว่าอันเนี้ยต้องดูว่าไฟล์ปลายทางเป็นยังไงมันก็เป็นทั้ง CSV ก็ได้เป็นปากเกก็ได้
ครับ
ถ้าเป็น CSV มันอาจจะเป็นไฟล์อะไร
เหรอครับ
ที่อาจจะเสร็จ
ครับ
แต่ว่าปาเกมมันแล้วแต่อารมณ์มันไป
ผมลองใช้แล้วไอ DMS มันแบบเหมือนผม insert ไปรอบนึงอ่ะมันก็ใส่ไปเป็นอีกไฟล์อะไร
ว่าใน
โอ้จะไม่ได้นานจูเนียร์
พอแล้ว
ครับจูเนียร์จะเป็นยังไงก็คือ
อ๋อ
จูเนียร์
เราสมมติถ้าที่เป็นผมมันจะเริ่มยังไง
มันจะเรียกใช่ไหม
หรือต้องเรียกว่าต้องทำเทียบเข้าซีนิกมาเปลี่ยน
พอร์ตซีเนียร์นี่คือระดับ
กึ่งทำงานที่มันโปรดักชันจิต
อ๋อ
ว่าแบบอยาก DMS ที่บอกว่ามันเข้าในที่อินเทอร์เน็ตถ้าเราทำแบบม็อกอัพโปรเจกต์เราก็จะไม่เคยเห็นว่ามันเป็นยังไงแล้วจริงๆ limitation พวกนี้ในบริษัทใหญ่แทบจะไม่มีเพราะเขามีล่าสายเขาจะรีสลาแต่เช่าเช่าทุกครั้ง1 กิกที่โดยตรงนั้น
ครับ
จะมีปัจจุบันนี้พวกนั้นก็จะหายไปแต่ว่าเราจะต้องแบบโชว์ฟอร์มเอาข้อมูลจากพวก Open Data ทำว่าจะเป็น
เหมือนตอนนี้ผมทำโปรเจกต์ให้แบบปหนึ่งเหมือนว่าเขาทำ POS ใช่ไหมเลยอยากจะแบบเหมือนเปิดทูให้ user มีแบบมี BI ของตัวเองเป็นภาษาแต่ละ user อยากจะปรึกษาเรื่องพี่คิดว่ามันจะคือหลักๆคือมันต้องเหมือน minimize cost อะ
คือแต่เรื่องผมคิดว่าดีที่สุดนะครับคือการไปจองเรื่อง capacity ในการ process อาจจะเป็นถ้าใน investment relationship จองไปเลย แล้วก็เรามาซอยย่อยเราจะแบ่ง security ตามเป็น tenant plan นะครับซึ่งที่เนี่ยผมอยากกันแล้วว่า tenant plan ที่เราจะแบ่งเพราะว่าอีกอันหนึ่งที่พวกผมใช้ก็คือ Medallion architecture ของ X นะครับก็เราจะมีแค่บอร์ด silver เป็นของแต่ไม่รู้ว่าเราควรจะแบ่งแบบการเก็บข้อมูลตาม tenant plan
Okay, I think that it's 12:55 now. Sorry to interrupt all of you, but please have a seat now so we can end the class now. And you can manage your own schedule or can ask question after the class go. So let's have seat a little bit ครับ let's have seat a little
หรือ
bit
แบบแยกถึง
have seat a little bit นะครับ
จบ
And close the door. Please help me close the door as well. Close the door. Okay.นะครับ. Again, today is we have very I have to say that นะครับ every time when we have guest speaker from Amazon team นะครับ we always hear some new technology and I believe that we learn a lot today นะครับ and again you have 3 labs homework that you need to finish within 3 days นะครับ because of credit limitation นะครับ hope you can finish it and if you have any question นะครับ you can still ask the question to people on me via Discord though อาจารย์เมธอาจารย์อูครับ before we enter class if student have some question regarding about the homework or regarding about Amazon technologies how can they contact you email or any channel please recommend a little bit before we end the class email or channel or website that's also okay as well
I can share our email. Or that probably the easiest one.
oh thank you so much
เข้าสู่
ไม่ใช่copy ไปเลย
everyone ครับ
So this is our email. So mostly I think we keep eyes and emails. So if you want to meet him, send email to him, and he is always at the corner. Go to Starbucks and we're gonna meet him. So that's you can just like poke him.
อยู่มิดทาวน์ตามปาก24 ชั่วโมงถึง
Meet
ตีหนึ่งตีสอง
himself. He's always at Sanyani campus, Starbucks. That's his base camp. Never be in the office. The office do a meeting. It's okay. So the second one is nice. We have any places to start email. You can meet in person. Yeah. Drop us an email. Any question.
Thank you very much. So we have some little souvenir. I believe that since you guys are at Starbucks at Satyam Midtown, so they may need some coffee cup นะครับ So give a hand to อาจารย์เน็ตครับ So อาจารย์อู as well give a hand to อาจารย์อูครับ ครับครับ hope you enjoy the class today นะครับ and the class end here and hope to see you all with this number of students next week นะครับ สวัสดีครับ สวัสดีครับทุกคน สวัสดีครับ
แต่ผมว่ามันแสบตาไป
ฝากให้ทาง
พี่ป้อม
อันนี้เป็นแก้วของภาคเลยนะครับเป็นโลโก้ของภาคเลยใช่ครับขอบคุณมากๆเลยนะครับวันนี้สนุกมากอาจารย์เองสนุกแบบโหสนุกแบบอินเทรสมากนะครับ อบคุณมากเลยแล้วเดี๋ยวเราให้ถ้าเกิดจะเผื่อให้น้องเถอะน้องต้องสร้างเลยมาต้องเติมครับเดี๋ยวก็ได้มือทางเราใช้ชัดเลยเดี๋ยวถึงไปก่อนมาครับ
จริงๆแล้วเนี่ยมันน่าจะแบบมันซ่อนไปมันหายไปคือตอนไปเสร็จครับพวก DNS อะไรพวกเนี้ยมันจะมีที่เป็นไทยเป็นเราต้องทำตามหลักการแล้วสุดท้ายอ่ะตอนสเต็ปที่ไปตอนเมกเอ็นพอยซอสเซนมันจะมีชื่อดีRDS server ก็คือทำตามแล้วมันจะ discover ได้
ไม่ถึงดีพี่บอกจริงแต่จะทำส่วนอีกตัวเป็นแต่ว่าพอแฟนเราภาษาไม่ได้ของกับเป็นตาย
ไปด้วยไม่ชัวร์ก่อนนิดนึงนะแต่ถ้าเกิดดูหนังได้เดี๋ยวตามบูมก่อนบูมผมตัดได้มันพอสมบ้างบูมบูมอยู่นี่บูมไม่มีนะไปดูรูปไม่ให้เขียนแต่ว่าสุดมากเด็กของท่านหนึ่งเด็กมากเดียวพอต้องบอกดีคือของฟลิปไม่จำเป็นเนาะพอนะต้องใช้หนึ่งพอนะผมจะฟังแล้วเป็นพูดเนี่ยฉันถึงได้
บอกว่า
เราไม่รู้
ไม่ต้องทำคนเสียได้นะซีเป็นแบบพี่ไม่ได้แหละเราเป็นคนไม่เลยที่บทความที่ปากว่าเราทำมาที่ไหนเราที่สุดเนาะการฟังอะไรอันนี้พัฒนายิ่งต่อเราอีก
แม่
อีกเราจะทำอะไร
จ่ายโคฟ้าแต่น้ำมันจะเยอะว่า
ประมาณ1 จะมาลองวัดเสร็จโยนไม่ได้แล้วเราจะไม่ได้แต่ทำดียิ้วกระตุ้นไปกันมันเป็นรอยฟองอันนี้ปกติจับอันนี้มันมีดีเรียนนะช่วยคุยได้ปักที่ในใจแต่อันนี้ต้องอยู่ในดอกเลยปักที่ตัดออกเลยคลิกได้
Why different?
คืออันนี้มันมีเท่าไหร่เป็นสามอันนี้มันมีสี่ผมกลัวว่ามันมีอะไรเราจะขาดเป็นตัว
อ๋อซอสเทเบิลเนมไปเราจะไม่ต้องตอบเพิ่ม
ถ้าอย่างนั้นซอสเนมก็แมทสกีมาคือสกีมาเนมผมไม่มองแล้วชื่ออะไรจริงๆสกีมาแยกไปแล้วซอสเนมก็แมทแบบสกีมาเนมซอสเนมสกีเนมที่เปลี่ยนคำว่าซอสสกีมาแต่มันก็คือเขียนอย่างนี้ถูกแล้วแต่มันไม่ถูก
งงเลย
Or you showed some project and scope only time. Very interesting. What exactly?
Looks like we would the bottom.
สอนเด็กมันค้าเด็กแล้วแบบทำเองก็ตายอะไรบ้างใช่ไหม
So this is they're gonna be all and be short. thing about the diversity. Actually, in the world, it's cool. I'm sure that if I did more than police, there's no song. That's totally the same. Diversify.
So this itself stand same thing.
Yeah, I think that's the trend. Your phone starts out as a bit of here, and agent. That's how that.